Welcome to the City Council Workshop for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. This time we have time set aside for citizens to address the council with anything that is not on tonight's agenda. You have a 3-minute limit. Do we have anybody? Okey doke. We'll move on to the executive review. We have the fire resolution, a resolution of the city council authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for provision of fire services with the Laurel Urban Fire Service Area. LUFSA? Would you like to say anything?
Good evening. The only thing that was in the LUFSA agreement, it had district in there instead of the urban fire service area is what it's supposed to have. So that's all we've changed is that. And the reason we wanted to change it, because the way it read, the county could have pulled our grass contract. So the county pays us a grass contract every year for fire service. And the way that read is we were going to provide service just like we would to any one of the districts. So we pulled district out and got the guys that are on the board. Mr. Cairns signed it and he was in agreement to sign it. He understood why we were doing it. That's the only reason we did what we did is to protect the county pays us around right at $20,000 a year for grass contract for protection. So that's what it was.
Same contract, just changed one word, right?
Yeah, we're just changing the districts. It doesn't change anything with the agreement of what we're gonna do or anything. And the county is the one that actually caught it and said, you know, we probably should change this so it matches the LUFSA agreement.
Any questions for the chief, council? Thanks, Chief. Next, we have Public Works Resolution. A resolution of the City Council authorizing the mayor to execute an independent contract service contract with Ace Electric, Inc. I believe this is already done, isn't it?
It is. It's part of the in-controls. This is part of the project at the sewer plant for the in-controls SCADA system that they're putting in. We're putting in fiber optic cables at the sewer plant. So this is part of that project, just a different contractor.
Any questions? Moving on, we have another Public Works resolution, a resolution of the City Council authorizing the mayor to execute an independent contract service contract with Interstate Power Systems. Are they done already? Or no? Oh, do you know anything about it? Matt's in Mexico.
Kurt, you want to speak on it?
You want to speak on that, Kurt?
Yes, this is an independent contract service agreement with Interstate Power Systems to maintain all of our generators that run our booster stations throughout the city. So it's just to updo the maintenance, and then they do a power load test on them to make sure that the load and keep them in working condition so that during an emergency that they would be readily available to go to work. Most of our generators run weekly as a test, but this would be to maintain them. Right? Yeah, it's a contract that was, I think it's for a 3-year term. So.
Change oil and filters, or is that yearly?
I think that's yearly, yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. So that's something that's already in the budget and budgeted for, and it's already.
Yeah, it happens every 3 years. We just have to renew the contract every 3 years. So this is the start of a new 3-year contract. You're welcome.
Other questions? Seeing none, we move on to another resolution of the City Council authorizing the mayor to execute an employment agreement for the position of Chief Administrative Officer. Interim Mark Egard would like to say something before we start.
Evening, council. I prepared a brief statement today that I just thought the council should know about who I am as a person. And I'll just read it if I can. So to the Laurel City Council, the role of the Chief Administrative Officer is to provide the necessary organization guidance to the mayor and the city council, as well to all the employees and the citizens of Laurel. Selecting a CAO who understands Laurel history as well as an eye for what the future holds is paramount as the city continues to grow. Working for 4 mayors, 3 CAOs, and 1 administrative assistant has allowed me to gain the knowledge to understand local government regulations and a keen understanding of how to conduct myself as a public servant. All the mayors that I have worked with have always had the best intentions for the city. I have disagreed with mayors on the decisions they were contemplating or decisions they made, but I accepted their decisions once they were made. In the past 20 years of employment with the city, I have been involved with decision-making processes not only in my department, but in the other departments in the city government. I work closely with 2 civil city attorneys to make sure that city council ordinances and resolutions were prepared and ready for adoption over the last 20 years, and I would like to keep helping the current city attorney to guide the legislative, judicial, and executive branches of the city. When the city had no building inspectors, I volunteered to step in, study, and I passed the commercial building inspector test within a few short weeks. When the city had no city planners, I stepped in and I trained how to become a city planner and to recommend hiring permanent planners that applied for that position. I'm a person that wants to understand and comprehend complex issues and then help to apply the knowledge gained from my investigations so that others may have the necessary resources to formulate their own opinions. I have been a certified playground inspector, a certified weed applicator, and I will continue to maintain my building inspector certificate. I also have a commercial driver's license, and I will continue to keep that driver's license endorsement if the city needs me to drive a truck. The time has now come that the current mayor recognized that he wanted to have help in the administration of the executive branch of the city. I was appointed interim CAO due to what I believed was the mayor's desire to have me help solve some of the issues the city is facing. After the mayor made the decision to appoint me as an interim CAO, I asked for an explanation, and I was satisfied with his answer. I did not agree with the decision to appoint me, but I must recognize that he was asking for help at a time that he believed was important. I cannot change the mayor's decision, but I did apply for the full-time CAO position due to his confidence in my abilities. I've never considered my employment with the city as a job, and I believe that being a public servant, taking care of the needs of others, is what I was meant to do with my life. On the weekends, you may see me mowing the weeds and grass south of East Main Street or on an ATV with a plow clearing snow from downtown sidewalks like I have done in the last few weeks. If I'm not working on city issues, I'm volunteering my time for my family, my neighbors, and close friends. I am a person that values being helpful. If this city council approves my appointment to CAO, I will take the job duty serious. I will work with my coworkers to find solutions to issues. I will be open and sincere with Laurel residents and to continue to be humble, considerate, and only wanting the best for Laurel and the people that call this city their home. And I wanted to share with the council and with the mayor and some of the people in the audience that a few life lessons that I learned from my father and my grandfather. So working on the farm when I was around 19, my father told me, do no harm. About the same time, my grandfather told me that the only thing certain that was going to happen was change. So I will always try to do no harm and prepare for change. Sincerely, Kurt Markey.
There were 3 applicants put forward to an independent. There were no city personnel at all involved with the interviews, any of that process, other than the city attorney, but she's technically not a city employee. So 3 people went and interviewed with this independent staff or interviewing board. They met with them, they interviewed them, each of them about an hour, a little over an hour. They forwarded me their recommendation and I accepted it, and I'm putting Kurt forward as their recommendation and my recommendation for CAO. Questions? Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. Thank you for that letter and those comments. I appreciate that. I think we all know that you definitely have a very big passion and commitment to the city. My questions are really going to be centered around kind of the contract and the finances of it, certainly not the abilities and worthiness of the job, if that makes sense. Yeah. One of my first questions was about the length of the contract. I felt like the language was a little muddled. 5 years, then 3 years, then 3 years. So is this a contract of 11 years?
It's a 5-year contract with the option for council to accept another 3 years. But he only has a 5-year contract. It would go 3 or 2 or whatever. She put that in there just as if you wanted him to go the next 2 times, she could write it at 3 or 2 or whatever you wanted to extend the contract.
Okay, I think just follow up, I think that should be clarified because the way it reads now, it doesn't really read as that there's a opportunity for another vote. It says 5 years for an additional 3-year time period and consecutive 3-year time periods. There's nothing about coming before council again. So to me, it reads as 11 years.
Okay,
total.
that's the contract itself. I don't know why she even put the 2 others, but it is a 5-year contract, so
Thank you.
we will clarify that. Councilmember Mize? Or were you done? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Thank you. This takes on to what Jody is saying. And I do want to echo the thoughts and feelings that a lot of my questions tonight also are going to center around the contract language and things more than whether or not we think that you could do a good job in the position. So the way that I read the charter, the city charter, subsection 3.1, it says that the contract shall not exceed 2 years unless specifically extended or renewed by majority vote of the council. So I would actually like to see the whole term reduced to 2 years, and we could have a second resolution on whether or not we want to prolong that to 5 years.
The word unless, I put forward a 5-year contract because Mr. Markegard felt uncomfortable with a 2-year contract, means he's leaving a position of security to a position of a contract employee, which 2 years doesn't meet his time that he would need to be an employee. So the word unless means I can put that forward. You can vote it down. You can make a motion next week to vote that down. But I have that option to, by the charter, to put that forward.
You are not the majority vote of the council.
No, you
Sir.
vote on my appointment, my contract that I put forward to you. Then you vote. Then you are the majority.
Okay.
Anything else? Councilmember McKay.
Thank you. You'd mentioned leaving a position of security. So does that mean that Kurt would be leaving the planning position and then we would have that open?
He has graciously offered to pick that up for a while until we can see what's going on with the planning. We don't have a whole lot going on right now. Councilmember Mize.
Thank you. Has there been any more movement with the Senate bill that we were talking about last fall that was going to force us to really redevelop the growth plan and those things? Because that seemed like it would take a lot of the planner's time.
So Senate Bill 382 is a land use plan, and that is going to be a significant undertaking. They are currently fixing. There's some fixes in place to discuss that. One of the biggest things is funding. So that's one of the things that I've asked the League of Cities and Towns to champion is when they originally introduced that bill, it included the municipalities and the counties that those municipalities were in. At a last minute negotiation of the legislative session, the counties were removed. The funding part only allowed the county commissioners to levy the funds to pay for the plan. It did not allow the municipality to leverage the funds to pay for that. So it was one of those that I brought up right away. I don't think we have legislative intent to enforce a planning mill levy that would then fund the land use plan for a municipality if we have to go ask the county commissioners to levy that. To me, it seems like they had good intentions. At the time, if the counties were involved in it, the counties are the one that actually run the mill. We submit it to the county for running our mills. On our information, when we prepare the budget, we submit it over to the county, and the county then submits that to the taxpayers. And that's how we get our funds coming in when they assess the people's property taxes and the special assessments. They come then over, they're deposited at the county when people pay their taxes, and then when those taxes are distributed, which in this year, our first half was December. I think Kelly said it was about a week after the taxes were due, we got a check. Or we didn't get a check, do we? We get a direct deposit. We get a direct deposit in our general fund budget. So one of those is one of the fixes, is help fund us, help the municipality fund it, and they are going to implement or try to implement that in this next legislative session. There's other things, extraterritorial zoning that I champion for, trying to get that changed so that we have an understanding as we go forward as a municipality that what is extraterritorial zoning, what should it be in state statute. They are putting forward some cleanup language for that if they can get in there. I mean, there's 4,300 bills and counting. But we're trying to get something in place so that the misunderstanding between what is county zoning, what is extraterritorial zoning, and what is municipal zoning is in place. And so that's another thing that I've been working on the last 2 years. I would have to say they had never intended the local planner hired by your municipality to do this land use plan. You are a component of it, but they wanted you to go out and do research like housing data on your housing needs. Well, you would have to actually, go out and collect all that. That's not typically what a planner does in their normal day-to-day administering state and local laws. That's something that they would have to hire professional people to do the housing analysis. The mapping, I think we can get a lot of the mapping done through the county and working through the Department of Commerce. We were just awarded, I think, $7 million for implementing 382. So working with the leagues of cities and towns, they put in for, believe it's a $7 million grant. Laurel is one of those people that offered support for it. I wrote a support letter saying, yes, we would want to be included in that grant. So we've got a lot of good things coming for that land use plan. I think it's good that we can actually fund it now, where before I'd worked with the Department of Commerce all last summer and I kept talking about how do we fund this? How do we fund this? I've talked to Commissioner Oslin, who was the chair of the county commissioner for Yellowstone County. I talked to him. His response was, I see where you're going. I understand. Let me know how it goes. So I reached back out to the League of Cities and Towns and I worked with them. But to answer your answer, planning will always need to be done in this town. Zoning is a big thing in this town. Extraterritorial zoning, we're having, litigation on that right now. So I don't want to speak into that. But when I started here in 2005, we had a contracted planner and it was $15,000 a year. Mayor Olson decided instead of paying that contract, we'd hire a full-time planner, and that was in 2007. That gentleman stayed 1 year. The next one stayed for about 3 years. And after that, I would step in and do some planning it while we're having a vacancy. That gentleman went to Red Lodge and became a planner for Red Lodge. So I stepped in. In that time, I actually interviewed for the next person that was on the interview committee for the next planner. That one was 6 months as a planner and then became CAO. We hired another one from Maryland, and she was in the position for a few years and then left and then was a contracted city planner for a while until we hired another planner. So we hired was that 5 now, 4 or 5? And then that planner came in and also wanted to leave after 2 years, and she gave her notice. I think that was in 2017. She'd given her notice that she was going to leave. I worked with the current mayor at the time, and we were happening to go out with KLJ, or we were actually seeking engineering consultants at the time. KLJ brought to the table what no other engineering firm had, and that was a local planner named Forrest Sanderson. So during the selection, the committee that was selecting our engineer representative, it was kind of a bonus to have a certified or a planner on there. Well, actually, I think he's certified. He's a certified planner and he's a floodplain manager as well. And so when that planner finally resigned, we had already selected KLJ the previous fall. So in 2018, that planner resigned. The mayor came to me and says, "What's our backup?" I go, "Sir, you said you would handle it. What's your backup?" And he says, "I don't have a backup. I can't get anyone to apply." I said, "I understand that, sir." "Yes, I already have a backup plan. It's called KLJ." And at the time that the council had brought KLJ on, he was a council member and he wasn't the appointed mayor at the time. So it was an easy transition from there because I had prepared and made sure that we had planning capabilities. Our next planner was hired. He did a little over 2 years and then he left. And then when the current mayor asked me to step in that planning role to help out, I said, "Coach, if you put me in, don't take me back out." Because I was tired of getting up to speed every 2 years, covering in between. And I said, if you ever hire a planner again, I want to be the supervisor over them. I will then help them train, be educated to best serve the citizens of Laurel. And hopefully build a rapport with them where they'd want to stay instead of a career building block. And that's kind of what they were using it for. They'd come in, get some experience, and it looked good on their resume, and then they'd leave. So I took on planning director's duties. I had the public works going. I then was faced with building inspectors that left. One was terminated, one resigned or retired. And that's what I spoke to in my letter. We had no building inspectors within a 2-week time frame. We had 2 and then we had none. And so I went to the CEO at the time and I said, "Listen, I've been around construction my entire life. I think I can take that test and I will pass, and I don't think it'll be a problem." She flew me to Vegas, went through a week's class. I think it was like 2 weeks later. I walked out of there. It's a 3.5 hour test. I walked out of there in 2, confident that I passed it. I didn't have to study at night in the hotel. I just went and I knew it. When I got up to turn the test in, he goes, "You think you passed?" I go, "I know I passed." He goes, "How do you know?" I said, "Because I filled out all the answers right." So I was pretty confident because I knew the stuff. So I am passionate about researching. I'm passionate about comprehending it and then how to apply it. So with the planning, long answer, I think the city's going to need a planner. I would agree wholeheartedly that as the role of CEO takes on what I think the CEO needs to be, I don't think that the CEO can be the planning director, can fill in for the public works director when they want to go on vacation. I think you need to have a backup. And what I would work towards, this is enough, would make sure that our departments have succession planning in place. So that if the fire chief needed to go and take a different career path or wanted to do something different, that there's, okay, what is their assistant chiefs trained to do? Are they, in communications with the chief and how to do the operations and the budgeting and how to pay bills and all that? So I'd work with those departments to just try to make it better and make planning better, make public works better, police, fire, EMS services, and that. So we're going to need a planner.
Councilmember McKay?
Thank you. So when the mayor's salary jumped, was it 240%? It was to the current rate, the 27,846. I do have an article here that said that the raise was made after the termination of CAO Matt Lurker when Nelson planned to take a more active role in the office. So this goes back to a question that I had asked previously. Kurt has a big, long job description in the letter that was sent out announcing the interim placement of Kurt. It was that he was going to take on most daily operational issues and regular duties and responsibilities. So it sounds like Kurt's taking a whole lot of basically the mayoral responsibilities. So when I think about finances, is it still your intent to maintain your current salary level?
Yes.
And I guess I wonder how that's justified then when so many duties are going to Kurt in the situation, and that raise was given with the intent that the mayor was going to take a more active role without a CAO.
Because I put in 20 hours a week. That's what the same as the judge. The judge makes 48. She does the same amount of time.
I'm not interested in what the judge does or makes. I'm curious about this section of your role.
When I ran for mayor, that was what was stated on the application. I accepted it. I don't think I should have to turn it back. I'm still going to be heavily involved with the city. Kurt is going to be more with the commissioners, state legislators, and other stuff that I'm not qualified to do. But as far as the day-to-day, budgets, finances, meeting with department heads, I will be here and do that. Councilmember Mize.
Thank you. This question is mostly for Kelly. Has anybody in your finance department tried to pull together prospective numbers for our upcoming budget with the fire engine's prospective costs that we have coming in to see what kind of balancing a budget's going to look like next year and if we have room for an added budget of a CAO?
So as I explained in a few weeks ago or even months ago, I don't know, time flies, when we had this discussion a while ago about introducing an interim, I had mentioned in my memo that for this position, because he will be working with every department, whether it be the general fund budget, water, sewer, whatever, that there is what they call intergovernmental transfers. And so we are able for the CAO position to transfer money from the water, sewer, garbage funds into the general fund to cover the wages of a CAO. With what he is currently making to what is going to be proposed, I think was proposed in the letters, is approximately about $19,000. So with adding the CAO, because we no longer have a water superintendent, wastewater superintendent, we no longer have, so we've gotten rid of 3 positions and there are 2 men left upstairs. So of those positions, which has been in the course of several years, we do have those cost savings. With the fire truck, like that's 100% general fund. So we have to concentrate on how we're going to fund and take care of that. With the CAO position, that's a portion of the general fund. So we can transfer those wages that would be taking out of the general fund. Like it has to be listed in the general fund, but those would be, I do a monthly interdepartment transfer from the other departments to cover, and which covers my wages. Brittany, like everybody in my department, we do this every month. It transfers money in and out of the system, which is approximately about $35,000. We would just up that to cover what the CAO, when we create a CAO budget.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So what I hear you saying is that the enterprise funds can help cover, are they allowed to cover all of it, or you have to split it between all your departments, enterprise funds and non-enterprise funds?
We'll have to split it between, we can split it between all departments that the CAO position covers, which is everything.
All of them. Yeah.
Which is everything. So the CAO budget is in the general fund. It is a general fund, like it's not in its own enterprise. It is
Right.
based out of the general fund. But then in the background, that money is transferred back into the general fund to help cover. So we can take water, sewer, garbage, gas tax, anything that, House Bill 124 entitlement money, any of that to cover what the CAO position would be in taking from the general fund.
And then there will be enough money left in the general fund to still meet the obligations for the fire truck that we've already committed.
There has to be.
And we've looked ahead. And we have looked at those numbers and we feel confident. And by we,
Those-
I mean finance people.
Those numbers are in the work, and we have to figure out, because there are a few things that have to cover, we have to cover, and there's rules through MCA that we can and cannot do. Regardless, the fire truck will be covered. The truck itself is what we're working on. So there won't be any giving the truck back, doing any of that. We will make sure that the fire department has their truck.
Excellent. Because the contract, the way to, if it doesn't seem like it's working out, it doesn't give us a lot of room to say, we just ran out of money and we can't renew this contract. Like, that's not in here. So we really need to be as sure as possible that we can meet all our financial obligations next year. And I am concerned with the announcement made last week that we didn't get a new grant for the water tank project, that we do have some large expenses coming up from our enterprise funds even. And so to take more money out of the water department or streets departments when we still have streets that need to be,
So the
that is
grant,
concerning to me.
so the grant that we went for was real close to $1 million. And that was from the EPA. That was for the planning portion of it. The reason that we didn't get that is because our project was not shovel ready. So we got shoved way to the bottom, because at the start of of that grant, there was only 2 or 3 people that applied, and there was all this money left over. Well, then more people applied. They gave 3 months. Was it 3? She tell us 3 months, Kurt? 3 months longer. When they didn't end it in July, they gave 3 months. And so now we are going to go, so that was just one grant. So now we can take all the information we used for that EPA grant, and now we'll start applying for, instead of 80-20 grants, they might be 50-50. But the water increase that we have started to implement, that you guys passed a few weeks ago, those increases are what's helping fund this project. And that's when we use Raftalis, that's where those numbers came from, because they know how much to cover our loans that now, obviously on a $20 million project, you're going to have loans, but that's where that increase comes to help fund and pay for that loan that we'll have to get.
Thank you. This question may be more for the attorney, but in the contract, because it is contract language under termination and letter B, that in the event that the city terminates or elects not to renew this agreement, which I assume would be at the end of that 5 years, that the CAO is entitled to a severance pay for a full year of compensation and benefits. That seems like a really risky statement to me, that if, say, for instance, the contract isn't renewed, we're still on the hook for another full year of salary. And so my question is that normal language? And if it is that full amount, that makes me feel a little uncomfortable. I don't know if anybody has an answer for that. If not, I will send an email to the attorney.
I believe that's been in every contract.
It has been. I noticed there was severance in other contracts, but it was not for a full year. It was 3 months, 4 months, something to that effect.
Do you know anything about it?
I don't want to get in too many details. It was offered as a severance package to me. I just went along with it and said, the risk of, so I'm not sure, right now as a 20-year veteran of the city of Laurel employment, I have certain rights afforded to me for the Wrongful Termination Act, which I'd have to be disciplined, educated on how not to do that again, do it numerous times. Entering into a contract state, if I leave the city not on my own terms, so under not my own terms, and the mayor decides to no longer represent that, I leave the protections of the Wrongful Discharge Act. And then I have nothing to fall back on. I've been a dedicated employee with the city of Laurel. It's not that I would need that. I don't plan on being terminated from the city. I would hope not. I would like to continue. There's a better chance or not that I would leave the city employment with me giving you, the city council, a 60-day and the mayor a 60-day notification that I plan to either retire or resign. I've given this council, I think last year, my resignation date was 10 years. I would like to serve the city until I'm turned the retirement age for medical benefits through our government. So that's my hope. I do understand reality that a CEO position doesn't have a long tenure. So we've had it in the city of Laurel 6 years. Heidi Jensen, our CEO, was 6-year term. During a change of members or mayors, she was uncertain of the future of her role being here at the city during a turnover of a mayor, and she just chose to resign and leave. I don't ever want to put the council in that place or any future mayor in that place. I would rather serve the citizens of Laurel, this council, to make sure that no matter what the differences are and how every individual in this town was raised, their morality, their decisions that they make, that there's some protections for the CAO position. So the severance package is important to me to be in the contract because, like I said in my opening letter, the one thing I do know about the future is change. And I want to prepare for that change. So would you need a severance package of a year? I don't know if I would. If I leave on my own terms and I give the city a resignation letter, currently I don't want to go anywhere. I don't plan on going anywhere. The city of Laurel has like most public employees, a 30-year retirement plan. I'm starting my 21st year. So it's 9. I've got 9 years left until I'm fully vested in the retirement system. Now I can go out at the age of 59. Would I want to go out in 4 years? I may. So that's where I'd give you 60-day notice. There would be no severance package going out at all. It would be, thank you very much. Hopefully I served you well, and then I leave. So severance package has been in the recent contracts. The last CEO, I think he actually filed a wrongful termination, and he walked away with twice that amount from the city coffers, or I think through our insurance. I don't know the exact details of that. I've been led to believe that it's in a couple $100,000 range. I don't know if that's factual or not, but they didn't allow me to be involved in the human resource part of that when that was going on. The previous mayor never told me what the settlement offer was. I knew it was significant. Like I said, I've never given the city a reason to fire me in 20 years. I don't think that I would give you a reason to fire you in the next 5 or the next 6 or the next 7 or next 8. I'm only here to help.
And to clarify, it wasn't necessarily, the language in the contract says termination. I'm not seeing a termination situation, but just that elects not to renew. So let's say we get to 5 years, and as you said, the only thing that's for certain is change. And finances are just, and we have to make some really tough budget calls and those kinds of things. And, if that, it says clearly that the CAO is the highest paid position, in the city, that maybe that's the one or something like that, that we'd still be on the hook for an entire year's worth of salary. So I'm just thinking more in terms of the finances, and that's a big chunk of change if for some reason there was something we really had to budget for or be more aware of. I'm not suggesting we terminate before we even start or anything like that.
May I respond, Mayor?
Yeah.
I think Brittany has printed this out today. There is a Senate Bill 117 going on right now, the Senate taxation hearing. And the information that the League of Cities and Towns is sending out is Senate Bill 117 will drastically reduce the general fund revenue. Some municipalities could experience a 30% reduction in tax revenue as the caps in this bill compound over time. your funding is always going to be derived on what the state legislature is going to allow you to mill, what you are allowed to pull in. I understand that in government. When we talk about hard choices to be made, the discussion of cutting positions has always been what I have had to experience. Because looking at my department and trying to get projects completed, either we have staff or we have projects. There's been hard decisions I had to make to move the public works secretary downstairs to the water office because I could not afford to keep her doing the job upstairs of answering phones when we have technology that answer the phones for her and gets redirected. So part of the technology is I didn't need a public works secretary, and I was able to reduce that budget, share, they had a vacancy downstairs, and to move that person down in where we didn't have to terminate. We moved him into a different role. She accepted that role and went down there, and I think they did a great job starting over in the water office. And she had a long career here too as well. So my hope is if we can't afford a CAO, there would be a position in the city that I would be able to fill in a different role, and we could eliminate that if needed be. Like I said, I want a little bit of the protections of this severance package because if you're at will and you're trying to finish your career, I'm concerned that the city will always need finances to fund every one of the positions that we have in the city. The CAO is no different than any other position that I think we need to fund. We need to take care of our employees, make sure that we have the employees and the numbers of employees that we need to have to provide the services that we have. I've been in public works for a long time, and we always were asking from our garbage truck drivers, more garbage truck drivers, and the rate structure just wasn't there to support it. We always wanted new garbage trucks because the old ones were breaking down and it wasn't reliable. And so I pushed for new equipment. And with that, sometimes we have to do vacancy savings. So when somebody would leave at the shop, we sit there and hold their position open for 6 months, 8 months until we had the funding available to do that. It's just part of the local government that you have to decide is what do you want to fund. The CAO position is no different. I would think that we could enter into a contract negotiation in terms at that time and evaluate it. The last thing I would like to say is you may think that, I think Kelly indicated that it's an $18,000 or $19,000 raise. That's not the truth. The truth is I'm also paid to be on call. I would forgive that payment to be on call, give that back. So currently I'm paying an additional $6,000 a year that goes back. I'm not going to take a fee for being on call, even though the CAO position will be 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. I plan on having the cell phone on my person at all times. Over the last 3 years, that phone got dropped off at Friday at 5 o'clock, and I didn't pick it up till Monday morning, unless I truly needed to know that there was something going on. That won't happen going forward. It'll be on call 24 hours a day. So if you look at the rate of pay versus the hours that are going to be put in, I don't think it's absorbent or excess to have that kind of wages for the things that a CEO must do. I don't otherwise, but again, I didn't ask for that. That was an offer made by the mayor. I didn't advocate for an increase of that. I didn't advocate for a decrease in that. That was an offer. Those were terms that I did not ask for. So the only terms in that contract was I wanted to make sure everybody's understanding the charter, which says unless, the word unless is there. It's a 2-year contract. The CAO, 2 previous CEOs had a 4-year contract and a 5-year contract. And I thought, and I had this discussion with the city attorney. I said, you know, I've been 20 years here. And she had written that contract as a 2-year contract. And she forgot to read the word unless. And I said, listen, I'd like to put it forward to the 5-year contract, give me some security, things that I need to get done. I can't do in 2 years. I don't want to sit there and get into a 6 month or 8 months and 1 year into it and then say, well, listen, we got to get sorry, your contract's not going to be extended past 2 years. So the word unless is there. I didn't want to feel like I was being singled out as having a contract less than what the previous CEO had. So I asked for the 5-year term, knowing that the council has to approve the extension of that past the 2 years. I understand that 100% unless. So I asked for it to be a 5-year contract. The 3 and the 3 on top of that, that was an offer to make sure that there was more security beyond that. I'm good with looking at a reduced number of that or just having a better understanding for what the city attorney thinks on that.
I think you started with severance, didn't you?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
You might want to contact the city attorney and get her opinion. Okay. All right. Councilmember Mize.
To follow up what Kurt just shared, I do believe it states clearly in your job description that you will not be on call. And I would actually like to see that language changed because I do think that changes some the nature of your job and the payment and why you're being compensated the amount that it is. But it also then sets the precedent for when you are ready to step down. If someone else gets hired, I don't want them to say, no, it says right here that this position was never meant to be on call on weekends and evenings. And then the same with the job description that was posted for people who wanted to apply for the job. It says Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, not really expected to be evenings and weekends. And I do think that needs to be changed in the language.
Was that in the current contract or was that in the CEO job description? If I can, Councilmember Mize.
So it was in the internal job posting, it was
Okay.
stated that way, and then it was also in the attached job description
Okay.
as part of, attached to the contract, kind of.
Okay. I do believe that a CEO for a city of Laurel needs to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to take calls. If there's something going on that happened, the police chief needs to notify administration that that person would answer their cell phone. If there's a major water break or natural disaster, I believe the CEO needs to come back and administer the affairs. I've been here 20 years. I've never not turned down a phone call. I don't expect to never turn down a phone call or put, like the last couple of years, I've been placing the city cell phone on the desk at home. And then I carry my personal phone. Everybody knows how to get a hold of me. There's never been not a time that anyone tried to call and didn't get a hold of me, so.
No, I believe that, that's more for the precedent of if this becomes a long-term contract that other people step in to fill.
Any other questions? Council issues?
Oh, I have more questions.
Oh,
Sorry.
Councilmember Mize.
Okay, so then you get past compensation and you get into that we're gonna provide you with a car. Is there actually a car a city car that's already been purchased? Or does that mean we're purchasing a car to go with the?
Kurt already has a city vehicle, so the car is just going to go, that vehicle will just stay with or we'll move to the CAO position.
Okay, excellent.
I don't think so. Mr. Markegard has requested to turn that truck back in to another department and just be paid mileage on if he has to go to Helena, if he has to go to Billings, like the other CAOs, there was a couple of them. We just paid the state authorized mileage
Okay,
for his vehicle, for his personal vehicle, because he felt that truck could be used better in another department.
excellent.
Currently, the city has a red car across the street. In the contract, I wanted the availability to use that car for city business.
Mhm.
That's why it's in there that the city will provide a vehicle for me to use on official business purposes. So if the car is available outside, out front, I would go out and check the car out. We have a calendar that we go in there and we check the car out and say, okay, I'd like to go to Helena, or I need to go to Billings to attend a council, or, county commissioner meeting. I would check the car out if it's available. If the car is not available, I don't expect the city to buy a vehicle for the CAO. It's to use the vehicles that the city has. If there's one available, the clerks, we have a car that checks out, the police officers use it. I would do no different than that. If there's a vehicle available, I would check the vehicle out and be able to use it. It would not go home with me. It would not I would start driving my personal vehicle to City Hall. On the off chance the car is checked out, say with a police officer is attending something, I would use my own vehicle, my own mileage, and then I would just ask to be reimbursed at the government Department of Administration rates.
Thank you.
That's for clarification. It's just to use a vehicle.
Thank you.
I believe that's another thing we'll have to look at because Kelly said that was in the
It
contract.
reads that he would be supplied with a city vehicle, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was like, it's his vehicle, he already.
That will,
but-
that will be taken
So we'll
out.
have to,
Reword that.
It might have to be reworded, but I still need the ability to use it like
Yes.
any other city employee gets to use a city vehicle. That's
Sure.
what the meaning, that's what my meaning was that if there's a vehicle available, I'd be able to utilize it if, for city business. If there's no vehicle available, I would have to say in the interim, I use the pickup to go route planning documents. So it wasn't going to be a quick transition over. As we look at how to help the public works director right now, he's on vacation. I'm covering for him. I took work orders over, 7 this morning to help him out, do that. I still use that vehicle to go do that.
Sure.
To go investigate snow drifts this morning, drove around and make sure that Cottonwood Avenue was still open and the open areas. So South 8th, some alleys that drift shut, I was using that vehicle to go and evaluate
Sure.
that. I think that's going to be a transition plan where the pickup is no longer being utilized by me. And I say, take it home. That's essentially what I do. And I'm compensated for that. At a certain point, we need to wean off of that vehicle and then just be no other city employee that just checks the vehicle out if it's available.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Mize?
Thank you. And then I believe it's professional development, point number 9 on the contract. It says that essentially the chief administrative officer can choose how many developments he wants to attend, where he wants them to be, which ones, as long as the expenses do not exceed the budget, but we don't have a budget for you at this time. So do we have an agreed upon amount for what that would look like up until July when we create a budget for a CAO?
There would be no professional development until the council adopts a budget that actually stipulates that.
So for now, that part would just not be used.
There is no,
Excellent.
to me that,
That's how I read it too. But-
there's nothing in future budgets and future budget years when the budget is prepared.
We
If
could put in a training memo or a travel memo.
there's a lot of
we
things,
do with the other
most everything,
departments.
so that's an old contract term that was brought from the other contracts. Most everything you can do online now. You can sign up for online courses. So there's the local government training. I think you guys have received an email from the local government center that talks about, municipality clerks, council members, mayors can attend it. It's a $50 fee. Essentially, that's professional development. It's a $50 fee and it's an online course. I think some of the council members have taken it. And so that's stuff like that. It would be built in the budget that I can sign up for that stuff that costs $50.
Yes. But at least for now, you're not.
No, there's no plan.
Excellent. And then I would love to hear from the attorney. I assume the old contracts were considered when we were building this contract. And it felt to me when I read all the old contracts and all the new contracts that we took all the best parts of all the contracts and put them together for you. So we took the longest amount of time at the highest amount of salary with the biggest severance package with the least amount of negotiation on the part of the city. And to me, it feels like it got really cherry picked. And so I would love to hear the reasoning behind that instead of it feeling balanced. Like here's some of the ways we're protecting the city and some of the ways we're protecting the administrator. It felt like we just made the world's most amazing package. So I feel like it needs more balance and nuance.
Okay, she'll be here next week.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, nobody else wants to say anything. Skipping down to page 75, which is the job description. It says that you would be overseeing department heads, including the library, and I do believe that the library has its own board of directors and is run separately. And so I do think that the word library needs to be removed, because I don't think you can.
The
oversee them
library
in the
has
same way.
union members, which the CAO is over. So he would be, would you like to clarify that?
Is that in the contract or is that in the CEO job description?
Again, the contract says, see attached job description. This is the attached job description.
Okay, so yeah, that's, the job description was approved by the city council, I believe back in 2008. So you're talking about language changes that were developed by, I think, Ken Olson and I think it was the local government center along with the city attorney that developed that job description. It hasn't changed in all these years. It was very specific. I would agree with you that there's a library board of directors that oversee the library director, and then how we play into the employees that are over there. I think that they would answer to the library director and that board. That's my personal take. As far as when they unionized and became part of the local governing or local 316 union, there's some nuances in there how the city, because now the city council is negotiating with those employees. They've entered a contract with you. So the city
Sure.
council now controls some of that budget and the authority, but because they went unionized. So I do believe that the job description needs to incorporate what they have done by unionizing and then are being represented by the local 316. So the job description is probably not current. I think that would be something that then could be changed outside of the contract, where if they can make the changes, they can do it in conjunction, have another resolution that would change the CAO job description. But I have no intentions, like I said, I'm not going to micromanage departments. I'm going to work with the department heads. I will work with the library and the library director as best as I can on taking care of her facilities. Like we did last year, I think I sent the mayor a text and said, hey, the sidewalks are broken up. Someone's going to trip and fall. He got right on it. Public Works got over there and they replaced the sidewalk. Had nothing to do with the library, but it was the facilities around the library. I've been over there numerous times to deal with roof leaks and roof repairs.
Okay.
When the wind blows, I'm the first one that drives around to the library to make sure the shingles don't blow off. I've been doing that for 20 years. I like to keep working with the library and making sure that it's one of the best libraries we have, if possible, and to
Okay.
work with them to support them.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll keep going. No one else wants to ask anything. You want to jump in?
Your goal.
Okay. I was just confused by this, so maybe someone can explain it to me. Sorry, I realized I had missed one point. Back up, page 29, subpoint 3, performance evaluation. It does say that at the end of the 5 years, you get an evaluation from the mayor. And then that evaluation can be brought to the city council, but we don't have power to hire and fire. So is that just for help to decide if we're renewing the contract, or is that?
Yes, that would be just a review of, did he meet
Obligations?
obligations and expectations,
Okay,
and what he didn't, what he did, and then I would present that to you.
okay, because
And
most
then-
of the time, we're
and then
not
you can
really
question him.
involved.
To ask any why not.
Okay. Thank you. Because, yeah, and in all the other contracts, they never said anything to the council. So I was a little curious what you're hoping our role would be in that. So just to question and give feedback, or?
Well, yeah, after the contract is fulfilled, then he has to come to you again, basically.
Yeah,
And he will get either a recommendation or not a recommendation from whoever's mayor at that time.
okay, thank you. So I would second then Jody's thought that this phrase that says it automatically renews at the close of 5 years, that language needs to change, because to me, it would sound like you could come to the council, we could have concerns, and it would automatically roll over anyway because of that.
The note gal has that one already written down.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, and one final question. So in November, when we discussed this, or December, it was brought up that HR is a big role that we're hoping the city administrator will kind of be able to fill in. And I am curious how you can be impartial when you have worked with so many of the people who work in our town and maybe bringing up those grievances. Because to me, the whole point of an HR person is to be impartial.
Yeah, she asked
Okay.
you.
In 2005, I sat in an interview committee, and one of the questions the interview committee asked me, it was the Public Works Director, Public Utilities Director, a member of the local business community, and one council member sat on my interview committee. The question is, what is your management style? And my answer is, well, you treat everyone the same, and you treat everyone different. And if you don't understand management of employees, that you have to treat them all equal, which is fair. You treat them all with the same fairness is paramount to making a good working relationship with your coworkers. You treat them all fair, and you treat every one of them differently. We all have different backgrounds, upbringings, the way we think, the way we talk, the way we do everything in our lives. In the time that I've been here, I asked Kelly to pull this up because I thought the question might be asked about how many employees I've dealt with. Since 2005, the leading end of the council, between council members, volunteers, there's been over 400 employees come through those doors and through payroll. Now, those are 400 employees that are gone. I think I'm on seniority list, I'm 5 of 70 some. So I've worked my way up through it. I've had to make hard recommendations to the mayor to terminate under probation. I've had to do that, even though I may have, communications with them, be friendly towards everybody, but I've never shirked the responsibility of protecting this city, ever. Decisions that have to be made need to be made, and they're hard because they impact so many people's lives. Not only that, their spouses, their children, where they're going to live, their finances, everything has to be determined about that. When you deal with hiring and firing, you can change somebody's life for the betterment by getting employed here. And it can absolutely devastate a family that has children and their everyday expenses. So objectively, I've never shirked that responsibility with any of my coworkers, whether we want to treat them fairly, we want to treat them each differently. And so I go back to to that 2005 interview and say, if you don't understand that we're all different, but we all need to be treated with respect. I will hold it 100% to that statement I made in 21 years ago.
I can vouch for that as a ex-employee of Kurt's. Him and I went nose to nose over grievances. I mean, well, I can get a little angry quickly, but so can Kurt. Don't let him kid you. And in union negotiations or a grievance, it stays in the room. You can call each other any name you want, and we did, but we were good friends. I mean, he treated me fairly. He treated other union members fairly. He stuck to his guns, what he felt was right for the city. And, we walked out that door and, I knew that I was treated fairly. Didn't always get what I wanted to hear. Other union members were the same way. We didn't always hear what we wanted to, but Kurt treated, he would listen to us. He would disagree with us and he would explain why. And so I can vouch that whatever comes up, he's dealing with a couple things right now with employees and he's doing an awesome job. And I think he would be the best person to want to, for you, if you were going to be judged by somebody, he would be one of the best people too, because he's not going to do a quick decision. He's going to listen to everything. He's going to ask you every question, why? Then he will formulate. So, but we did that.
I do recognize that we as employees, we're imperfect people. And so you try to get a majority of the people that come and be a civil servant, and that's what I truly believe we all are. We're civil servants, even council members are civil servants. It's an elected civil servant, but we come together to do the citizens' work for the citizens of Laurel. They expect expectations of us to make sure that troubled employees are given the needed resources to help them become better employees. They also expect us to make sure that we cut ties with the employees that are not responsive to that. But I also have compassion that we all have a bad day. So there might be something going on in a personal life that is driving them to feel a certain way and do a certain thing while they're employed with us. And I would not want to chalk up to being judged by one bad day in my entire life and then have that held against me. So I helped institute and negotiate when people are written up, that those letters are then removed from the folder, removed from your personnel file after, I think we've negotiated on a 9-month period. So after 9 months or 18 months, I believe, 9, that employee can come back after 9 months and say, listen, I had that bad day. I'd like to take that out of my file. It's totally up to the mayor at that point to remove that file. The staff can't do that, but we would make a recommendation as a department head to sit there and say, listen, this employee has been exemplary since, we call it a write-up, the bad day they had, and then give them a chance for retribution, to make amends to their employer and to the citizens. Because I really believe we cannot judge everybody on one bad day, and even 2. And that's why we have the Wrongful Termination Act, that people that are terminated for no cause have a resource where they can go and appeal that decision. They can go through that process. And one other thing I would like to say is we had a hiring decision, and as staff, we're just a recommendation, but the CEO at the time and I sat on a recommendation to hire somebody. We had an applicant that had applied numerous times to be employed by the city of Laurel. They were not selected. They filed a human rights complaint against us, against the city, for not making that hiring decision. The CEO came into my office and said, can you believe this applicant filed a wrongful hiring decision with department, I think, the state Human Rights Bureau, I guess. And I said, absolutely, they should be able to do that. And she's like, what? You're not upset? I go, absolutely not. We made the right recommendation. The mayor made the right hiring decision. I stand behind that decision 100%. And by the way, the person we hired is in the same class, a protected class of people. So how can we be the main claim was we were discriminatory for any male that was over 40 years of age. We informed the state that the employee that we hired was above that 40-year-old mark. And so how could we be guilty of discrimination? As soon as they were aware of that, the complaint was dropped. So being a CAO, being actually a good public employee, public works director, I'm very well of all the things that are going on with laws for hiring and firing. And I think that would not stop immediately if I wasn't selected as CAO. I would still give my recommendations. I think not being selected as CAO and going forward, it would just put me back into the box that the planning director's position is in, and I would still carry forward in my duties. At this point, I don't want to do that for the city. I think that I have a better need to help everybody, including the council, to make sure that when we do hire and we do fire and we do have evaluations of public servant behavior, that it's done right. So that would be my request, to say, yes, I'm not going to be impartial. I'm going to be fair to everybody. And I would too. I don't like to bring up bad times between me and the mayor, but there was a lot of times that I walked out of those meetings, grievance meetings, and I never walked out of there with hurt feelings or ill will towards that employee. I walked out of it and says, we have a difference of opinion, difference of the contract. I believe I'm right. I believe the city is protected that way. It's never been about what Kurt can provide or not provide. It's what is the best interest of the city. I don't put well, I'm not a biased person. I don't believe in it. I've never have and I never will. So that's all I have to say.
Councilmember Mize?
Thank you. I thought so too. Then I found another one on a different sheet of paper. We were provided on page 44 with a list of other cities that use city managers or CAOs. And I'm curious if we compared our compensation package and our budget and all of that with some of those other cities, or are we just saying other cities use them?
No, I believe she did, and we'll double check with her, but she said we fell right in there
Okay,
with the compensation, lower than some, higher than others.
okay,
But yes.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Council issues? Council member Canopy.
Well, now that we're kind of maybe jumping to another subject, Michelle and I have talked about putting tree board with the parks, since trees go in the parks. We can't get anyone to help, and she does most of the work anyway
On tree board,
on tree
not
board.
on parks.
So we want to go and put the two back to, put them together. It would save time, it would save, and we'd have more input. And so far, the park board is kind of like Michelle and myself, we're interested in doing something.
I got
And I
a,
think that
got
maybe
a, I got a letter from
Okay,
Vice President Wilkie, and I passed that along to the attorney, and she said that what'd she say? There'll be some ordinances that would have to change, but she said if that's what they want, that's perfect. And council says it's okay. She says that can be done. So she's working on that.
thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
because Matt's on board and,
Mhm.
you know, and it will help him for time and putting things together and tightening up the pattern a little bit. But
Okay.
thanks for looking into it.
Yes. Vice President Wilkie sent that to me last week, and I passed it on, and she said, yes, we can do that. She'll have to rewrite an ordinance or two, so.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Other items? Sorry. President Sparks?
Just a reminder that we have emergency services on Monday at 6 here in council chambers.
Okay. Attendance at the upcoming meeting? Everybody gonna be there? Any announcements?
I think Kelly has an announcement for the transit program.
Kurt and I are gonna go pick up the new bus on next week. So we will
Yay.
have another one, a
Wonderful.
passenger van. So there were some problems with it. A couple seats were torn or something, so they fixed that up. And we got the email today stating that it's either ready for delivery or pickup. So Kurt and I will travel to either Bozeman or Livingston, meet them halfway, and next week sometime when both of our schedules will meet in there somewhere.
Excellent.
And if you have a chance tomorrow morning, log into this and watch. Can they register to
Tell them no, you can register to testify.
testify?
Yeah.
Okay.
The link is where, that previous link I sent, you can sit there and then go. So just remember that it's in the Senate Taxation Committee. So if you go down that and you want to watch it, make sure you're in that room, Senate Taxation Committee, and it's the Senate, not the House. They have about 10 playing at once if they have all these committees going. So you have to really select which one you're gonna, it'll say in progress. And it just says view and you click on it and you're in it. So
Anything else?
that's in Helena, yeah.
We're dismissed.